Hello everyone, welcome back to Math with Meljo. Today's video is regarding trinomial factor in form of x squared plus bx plus c. So let's get into it. So the first thing you need to pay attention to this is the form that you need to memorize. X squared plus bx plus c. So let's first understand the formula better. So in this formula, x squared is your quadratic term. And b beside like the bx, so the b here is the coefficient of x, and the c here is also constant. So you need to keep in mind these factor expressions. So the next thing I'm gonna show it to you is the example in this trinomial form. So the example I'm gonna give it to you, it would be this one. So I'm just gonna write example here, and our example is x squared plus 5x plus 6. So I'm gonna just say solve it. So let's see how can we solve this question. You need to take a look at this x, this 6, and this 5x here. Regarding the 6, you need to think of what two numbers, if I multiply them together, gives me 6. So I'm just going to write down two number, multiply, gives you, it's equals 6. And regarding the 5 here, you're going to say what two numbers, if I add them together, it gives me 5. So we need to find two numbers. When you add them together, it gives you 5, positive 5, and two numbers, when you multiply them together, it gives you positive 6. So keep in mind, here I have positive, so this is positive 6, and here I have positive, so it's going to be positive 5. So we got to think about it. What can those two numbers be? So I have 1 and 4 in my mind, and I have 2 and 3. Because 1 plus 4 gives me 5, but when I multiply them together, it doesn't give me 6. So these two cancels out. But 2 and 3 works. I'm thinking, if I add 2 and 3 together, it gives me 5. And if I multiply 2 and 3 together, it gives me 6. So these are my two numbers. Bingo, I found my number. So then I have to group it. How can I group it? I'm just going to write down. So we're going to write down x squared here. So it's going to be x squared. Instead of 5x, I'm going to write down. So see, my two numbers are 2 and 3. So that means 5x is 2x plus 3x. Because 2x plus 3x gives me 5x. So I'm going to write down x squared plus 2x. I'm going to put bracket here. Plus 3x plus 6. Something that I need to keep in mind, that in here I could have put x squared plus 3x, and here I could have put 2x plus 6. But why I didn't do that? Because I'm thinking for future, and I'm trying to group the ones that I can factor from. Between x squared plus 2x, I can factor x out, and in 3x plus 6, I can factor 3 out. So this is what you need to keep in mind in grouping them together, and you get more, like, you're going to be more comfortable while you're going to do some more practices. So let's continue with our solution. In here, in the first bracket, I can factor x. So I'm going to write down x bracket x plus 2. How can I factor? I'm just going to say x squared divided by the factor, so it's going to be x squared divided by x. I'm going to have x, and then 2x divided by the factor, it's going to be 2. So then I have plus, then between 3x plus 6, what I can factor is number 3. I'm going to write down 3. So 3x divided by the factor, which is 3, is going to be x, plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. So you can see these two brackets are same. Whenever you have these two brackets same, that means your solution is correct. If these two are not same, that means something is wrong with your solution. You need to solve it again. So in this case, I have x plus 2, that means it's correct. So then I have to regroup these two that is left out from the bracket. So I'm going to write down x plus 3 and then bracket x plus 2. And I do have my solution. So this is going to be my final answer. So let's move into our next example so you guys can be more comfortable regarding it. So the next example would be x squared. I'm just going to write down example. So it's going to be x squared plus 7x plus 12. In the corner, I'm going to write down the form. So just keep in mind. So the form is x squared plus bx plus c. If you remember, I said c is a constant and the b is a coefficient of x. So this is why we need to find two numbers that when you add them together, it gives me 7. And when you multiply them together, it gives you 12. So in order for you guys to be more, so let's see. So two numbers when you multiply gives you 12, and when you add them together, it gives you 7. But I'm thinking about 3 and 4. If I have 3 and 4, when I add them together, it gives me 7. When I multiply them together, it gives me 12. Bingo! I found my number. So what I'm gonna write down, instead of 7x, keep in mind, I'm gonna write down 3x plus 4x. And when I want to regroup it, so I'm thinking, well, 12 is multiplier by both 3 and 4. But what I'm gonna try to do, I'm gonna try to put 3 here, and then I'm gonna try 4x here. So to regroup it, I'm gonna write down x squared plus 4x bracket plus 3x plus 12. So what I can factor from this one, so what I can factor from this one, I can factor x. So I'm gonna write down x bracket x plus 4 plus what I can factor from the second bracket is number 3. So it's gonna be x plus 4. So as I mentioned, both of these two are same. That means our solution so far are correct. So I'm just gonna write down x plus 3 and then x plus 4. So this is our final answer for this example. So let me give you more example. The next example would be this one. Let's use negative number. Not all time numbers can be positive. X squared minus 5x plus 6. So keep in mind, I'm just gonna write down the actual format. Ax squared plus bx plus c. In this scenario, always pay attention to the signs. Here I have negative 5 and here I have positive 6. So I'm looking for two numbers that when I add them together, let me just, if I draw this, if I add them together, it gives me negative 5. But when I multiply them together, it gives me positive 6. So let's think, what can those numbers be? I'm thinking about 2 and 3. So 2 and 3, if I add them together, it gives me 5. But if I multiply them together, it gives me positive 6. But so that means 2 and 3 doesn't work. So one of these two numbers must be negative. So let's think. If I have minus 2 plus 3, I'm gonna have positive 1. That also doesn't work. But keep in mind, two negative numbers, when you multiply them together, it gives you a positive number. And then when you add them together, could be negative, could be positive. But let's see in this scenario. So if I have negative 2 and negative 3, negative 2 times negative 3 gives me a positive number because both of them are negative. So negative to negative gives me positive. And negative 2 plus negative 3 also gives me negative 5. So my two numbers are negative 2 and negative 3. So I'm gonna regroup it. So what I'm gonna write down, instead of negative 5x, I'm gonna write down negative 2x and then negative 3x. So I'm gonna write down here x squared minus 2x bracket. Then we gotta write down plus minus 3x plus 6. What can I factor in the first bracket? I can factor x. So I'm gonna write down x minus 2 plus, what can I factor from negative 3x plus 6? So this would be 3, I say. So I'm gonna write down 3. No, negative 3. So it's gonna be x minus 2. If you have paid attention, at the beginning I said 3. So, but if I only had factor 3 out, so in this scenario I would have negative x. And if I have negative x, this two wouldn't be the same. So this is why I factored negative 3 in order to have these two brackets to be same. So keep in mind, I factored negative 3 and here I use a positive sign. So I'm gonna write down x minus 2, and in here positive to negative is negative, so it's going to be x minus 3, and this is our final answer for this question. Okay, so we had, let me give you another example. So in this example, let's solve the equation using factoring. So what I have here is I'm gonna have x squared plus 7x plus 12. That equals 0. So let's solve for it. So the first thing I'm gonna always write down, as you guys, if you are in the beginner, so I'm gonna write down the actual form so you can remember. So we need two numbers that when you multiply them together it gives me 12, and when you add them together it gives you 7. So since we know the number is 3 and 4, when you add them together it gives you 7, when you multiply them together it gives you 12. So instead of 7x in here, I'm gonna write down 3x and 4x. So let's regroup them. I like to use x squared plus 3x. Then I'm gonna use 4x plus 2. So from the first bracket, I can factor x. So I'm gonna have x plus 3 plus, from the second bracket, I can do 4. So I'm gonna also have x plus 3 here. Since these two brackets matches, both of them are x plus 3, that means my solution is correct. So I'm gonna have x plus 4 and then x plus 3. So this is our not final answer here because it asks us to solve the equation. So we need to set each of these factors. So this is the first factor and this is the second factor. We need to set each factor equal to 0. So how I write it, and before I do that, why 0? Because in the question it gives us 0, it equals 0. So how I write it, I'm just going to write it like this. So x plus 3 equals 0. In order to solve it, I'm going to keep the x on the left side. I'm going to move 3 to the right side, so x is going to be equal to -3. This is my first. And then here I have x plus 4 equals 0. So x is going to be equal to -4. How I got that? I move 4 to the right side. Oh, so x equals -3 and x equals -4 are our solutions. So we came to the end of factoring trinomials using the format ax squared plus bx plus c. So something you need to keep in mind regarding all the examples I just gave it to you. So this was the format ax squared plus bx plus c. So in all the questions that I gave it to you, this a was 1. How can I know that? How can you know that? You see, beside each of the x's, let's go up, I don't have any numbers. That means the a was 1. But what if the a is not 1? What if there's a number beside the a? For example, what if we have 2x squared plus 7x plus 3? How can we solve for this one?